Hello everyone, Turtleags here, bringing you another AFK journey video. So as you can see before you, we are less than 24 hours before the release of the Plague Creeper in the global servers. I'm very excited because the Vietnamese servers have been really lucky. They actually got early access to the Plague Creeper, but thanks to their early access, we actually have more team building information, which should allow us to excel on day one against him. Basically, the structure of this video will be as follows. First, we will go over his kit, understand how he operates. Next, we will go over some footage of a Vietnamese player fighting the Plague Creeper for the first time. This footage was actually, I found it from Analytica, Discord server. Basically, there is a guildmate of this #1 player in the Vietnamese server who goes by Wilson. At least Wilson was the #1 player against the Plague Creeper on day one, on October 28th, which I think was when the Plague Creeper came out for the Vietnamese server. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the case from the conversations I read. And basically, Wilson gave the guildmate permission to post a replay of his fight against the Plague Creeper on Analytica. So we will go over that footage next. That's number 2. Number 3, we'll go over this visual by another person. I think he might be the guildmate as well. Oh no, I don't think he's the guildmate, but it was someone on Analytica who keeps in touch with the Vietnamese players, and he basically assembled this really neat visual, team building idea visual, based on the top teams that seem to be taking the leaderboards in the Vietnamese server. And then finally, we will actually go over my favorite teams. I'll actually have what I expect to be the team formation for the recommended teams based on the footage that I have seen, as well as just my research. So without further ado, let's go ahead and begin. First, let's go over his kit. So Plague Creeper, the ultimate, super mud bomb. Basically, in a nutshell, he will fire 8 mud bombs at random against any of your allies, and every time a mud bomb lands on your ally, it will do splash damage on surrounding allies. So for this reason, you'll probably notice that these Vietnamese players, when they create their formation, they kind of spread their heroes apart like a starfish, which is possible for most teams, except the Celestial Hypogene team, which we'll go over later. But most people will kind of spread them out as like 5 points of a starfish. That way, when the Plague Creeper is shooting mud bombs at you, you're not taking like tons and tons of splash damage, So that's the ultimate. And then moving on to Toxic Emanation. Basically, this is a poison gas that engulfs the map, and it does like damage over time sort of thing. And then the next skill, Intermittent Split. This giant wall of text basically says that in the beginning you'll start off as one blob. It'll be the Plague Creeper, and then once you do enough damage and defeat this blob, then that Plague Creeper will split into 2 blobs, and then you defeat those, and then it'll split into 4, and then 8, and it'll keep going. And I think it stops at like 8 or 16. And then the cycle repeats. After you defeat the little mini blobs called the Plague Rots, then a Plague Creeper will re-emerge, and this Plague Creeper will be weakened for 8 seconds, meaning that you'll be able to do 20% more damage to it. I think it still attacks you during that time, and then afterwards, to repeat the cycle again, where you defeat 1, becomes 2, defeat 2, becomes 4, defeat 4, becomes 8, so on. The amount of damage that you need to do to enter each phase will be increased by 150%. Basically, you need to do 50% more damage than you did during the previous cycle in order to complete the next cycle. And it just keeps going and going. It's a very generic, it's basically a DPS check. Do you assemble a good team that has good single target and multi-target damage, or better yet, both? And then finally, here, the Plague Rot replication. In a nutshell, basically what it talks about is how it shoots like 2 sludge balls, or, it can patrol a fixed path. And we've seen this in-game, actually, where the slime will actually march towards you in a line, then march away from you in a line, march towards you in a line, and, shoot mud balls and, like a parade, you know. And then the final thing is that you know, these plague rots, they can explode and do continuous and create sludge pools on the ground that deal continuous damage, kind of like what Necro Dragon does. Excuse me. So now that we've gone over his kit, let's go over the footage. Okay, I'm going to break it down for you. So starting now, so as you can see here, it starts off as one Primal Lord. You'll probably notice that, like I mentioned before, the player spread his heroes out like a starfish. You want everyone spread apart so that, you know, you take the mud bombs from the ultimate, but you don't take splash damage. Here, you know, the replication has begun. They're marching, right? And what's really cool, actually, I just noticed you can stun them, which could be quite useful. And as you can see, you know, heroes like Odie deleting the blobs, or like, you know, AoE mages like Florabelle are going to be quite useful. Lily May is actually one of the hardest hitting DPS. Actually, she is the hardest hitting DPS against the Plague Rot. Just because she hits so fast, she has great single target damage, and she attacks fast enough to where she can actually kill the mini Plague Rots quite easily. Here he opted for double healers, I anticipate, because this was September 28th, which I believe was day one of the Plague Rot being released. But I don't know, maybe you do need 2 healers, although the formations that we are going to go over right now don't have 2 healers. It's just Mikola. Mikola is enough to keep everyone alive. So as you can see here, Lily May did 1.4 build damage, Odie did 6 build damage, and I will overlay before you kind of like an expected damage spreadsheet of the most commonly used DPSs. This I also found in Analytica by someone who plays in the Vietnamese server. Now take this with a grain of salt. I'm assuming that they're running only Mikola and that's it. But this, you know, more data is better than no data, right? Alright, so now moving on to the very nice visual, just kind of want to break it down for you. In a nutshell, I think that if you are running a Lily May and Mikola, you're going to be ahead of the curve. Lily May is the premium DPS. If you don't have a Lily May fully built, do not expect to get the top ranks. And if you don't have a Mikola fully built, you probably won't make the top ranks either. You need both. Every recommended team, as you can see on the right hand side, is going to run a Lily May and Mikola. If you don't have them built, chances are you're probably free to play, or maybe just haven't been following the meta, because Lily May and Mikola are everywhere in Dream Realm. I mean, if I overlay before you, just Mikola alone, she's like in over half of the Dream Realm bosses, so you really should be building her. And Lily May, you do need her for Dream Realm, you need her to counter Eironn. These are very important heroes you should build, and these two, no matter what team you homebrew, you probably need a Lily May and Mikola in your team. So just number one. Number two is that there seems to be 2 different camps of team building. One is with an Eironn AoE mage build, another is with a Rainier AoE mage build. So, you know, some people, the advantage to going with Eironn, I'm sorry, is 2 things. One is that you get the magic defense shred. You also get the grouping, which can be very helpful with AoE down the Plague Rots. But number 2, it makes it, you're basically one step closer to activating the Wilder talent tree, which is one of the most powerful faction talents that people are building right now. Essentially, what will end up happening when I show you the sample team formations later is that half of these teams are actually placing Lily May and another DPS on the back 2 Wilder glowy tiles. Yes, and so, you know, you may be asking, well, what's a good third Wilder DPS or support? You could either go Damien, like in the footage that we went through, or you can add a little bit more DPS and have Lenia. Remember, you know, you're going to be going through the cycle over and over again, and each time you defeat one cycle, the next cycle you need to do 50% more damage in both a single target and multi-target situation to get to yet the next cycle, which will also require more damage on both sides of the spectrum. So for this reason, you're going to need to run, sorry, my Discord just shut down. You're going to, oh, it's updating, perfect timing. You're basically going to need to run Lenya. Now, off of the top of my head, because Discord is doing an update right now, the third choice would be Carolina, or I guess the last slot could be Carolina. So, you know, Carolina's going to be very good. Talene's going to be very good too. So you could go Eironn, Carolina, Eironn, Talene, but you would either go Lenya Lenya or the healer chariot dude in order to round out the Wilder faction talent. And then afterwards, you're basically going to, or I guess another alternative would be the third line from the top, which this is actually a team that does not have a faction talent tree activated, so I don't know how viable this team will be. I think the premise of this is that you have Scarlita for mobbing duty as well, but honestly I think that there might be better choices. My favorite is actually the bottom row, which I'm actually going to try out first tomorrow. Basically how it works is that you have Presto, Rainier, and Talene, which activates the Celestial Hypogene tiles. And I would presume that you would want to put your two main DPSs there. But the problem is that with Rainier to dynamic balance with the Plague Rot, you're going to need Talene to be in the center back tile, right? So for this reason, that's why I have Mikola on the other glowy tile. You have Lily May on the back right tile because you need her on the glowy tile, but you need her to also be the recipient of the Resonator spell. And I think it makes a lot of sense that you would actually have the offensive main Presto providing 14% energy regeneration for your main DPS. Okay, Discord reloaded again. So in terms of alternatives, I think the major ones is that if you don't have Mikola, then Smokey is going to be your go-to. The thing here is that the Plague Rots and the Plague Creeper themselves, I don't think they have any stunning capabilities. We didn't read that at all, and I don't think we saw, like, we stunned the Plague Rots, but the Plague Rots didn't stun us. So for this reason, Smokey's going to be very good. Coco, I think, is like if you have no other choice, but honestly, I would rather you run Damien than Coco. You know, might as well activate yet. Or actually, I guess you don't have the 4 faction or 5 faction bonus when you're running the faction talent tree, so excuse me, I think Damien's better, but you can run Coco if you want. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's go ahead and move on to what you guys actually all came here for, which is what teams to copy paste. So let's go over this together. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my my spreadsheet here, and we'll go over one by one. All right, so let's go over first the Florabelle team. So the premise behind this team is that you basically you have your 3 factions, right? You have your Florabelle, your Lenya, your Lily May. You're running basically 1 crowd control and 2 DPSs on the Wilder side to activate the Wilder faction talent tree. On the 2 glowy tiles, you're going to have the 2 highest damage dealing DPSs, Odie and Lily May. This is actually a modification of the team that we just saw. Personally, if I was to run a Florabelle, which might not be the best choice, I would probably run this team. I don't think Damien is necessary. I would rather jam in another DPS, unless I have survival issues. And then the next team is going to be the Eironn team. So basically you swap Florabelle with Eironn. I do think that the Eironn team is more potent. Basically you swap Florabelle with Eironn, you swap Odie with Carolina. So basically the idea here is that you're making your magic damage dealer stronger and you have more AoE potential, because Carolina arguably hits harder than Florabelle, despite Florabelle having the summons. Yeah, and then you still run Lenya as your DPS of choice. Now moving onwards, we have basically a Wilder faction team, but running Talene instead of Carolina. Personally, I like the Talene comp more than the Carolina comp, just because Talene, I feel like she can hit more enemies, and in a single target situation, Talene's just going to flat out do more damage. And then finally, we have my favorite team, actually, which is the Celestial Hypogene team. This one, I basically, just going off of my team building knowledge against the drill run boss Nathaniel, this is basically the team that I would run. You have Lily May in the back right behind the main Festo to get the 14% energy regeneration. Make sure that Lily May is the beneficiary of the Resonator spell. And by the way, positioning is very important, guys. I don't know if you know, but the Resonator spell, it blesses the rearmost ally. But if you have two allies in the back row, it will count the rightmost of the back row as the target, as the backmost, essentially. So for this reason, you always have Lily May on the back right glowy tile. Excuse me, yeah, and you know, some of you guys may be asking, well, does that mean that you end up not taking advantage of, say, like the white glowy tile versus the dark glowy tile? It actually doesn't matter, because the glowy tiles for both the dark and the light, it actually goes off of the attack percent of Mikola and Lily May. Lily May has sky high attack percent, by the way, or attack. I think my Lily May has above 10 bill attack or something like that, and Mikola's is actually pretty reasonable as well, so, or reasonably high. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If there's any additional teams that I left out, or if I end up cooking a better team tomorrow when Plague Creeper drops, do be sure to, you know, follow my Twitch channel, join my Discord server. That way you guys are up to speed on the latest and greatest teams that we cook up every couple hours. So anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.